Bruce also comes back.
The other Bruce.
Hi.
Hi, Greg. Welcome.
Oh, there you
Welcome, Greg Wayman.
go. Thank you.
You are applying for Tree Committee and Planning Commission, in that order?
Yeah, they had a secondary thing. I put the planning commission, but the tree thing would fit me real well.
Okay.
Or fit you real well.
Are you branching out or what?
How wrong on so many levels.
But are we going to ask
Okay.
him on both, right?
Well, I think he's indicated. Do you want to be interviewed for both positions, or would you like to?
I only looked at the questions that pertain to the tree commission, but
Okay.
matters not to me. If you need help, I'm more than willing. I'm here to give.
Okay. Council, both sets of questions?
Well, just as a matter of information, we've got 10 applicants for the Planning Commission. There is one vacancy, and we've got more vacancies than we have applicants for tree. If that helps you make your decision any easier.
Sounds pretty simple to me.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you're a pyro, things are really looking good for you.
Yeah. Wanted to just check with you on the tree committee. They meet on the second Monday of each month,
Right.
early evening. We're okay with that?
No problem.
Okay. At this point, the tree committee is not a televised committee. We are being televised tonight. Do you have any concerns or issues with making decisions on air?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our liaison to the tree committee is Peggy Cole. So, Councilmember Cole, do you want to ask a few questions?
Second, okay. So, only 2 questions. So please discuss your interest and background in gardening and horticulture.
My interest in the gardening and horticulture itself, or in the position? Well, my skills are I've been a landscape contractor and designer for 30 years. I've been here in Littleton. I've been a licensed contractor here in Littleton for 15 years, although they don't require a license anymore over the last 3 years. I know plants. I know soils. I know irrigation. I know what grows and what doesn't. One of the main things here that I would think factor, and what I would think that would be important as far as my input goes, was I know and I can anticipate how things grow. A lot of things are put in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I understand that there's restrictions as far as closeness to buildings, closeness to sidewalks, impeding pedestrian traffic around buildings, around public spots, lines of sight as far as traffic goes. Once things grow, there's going to be concern, and it's things I've grown with. It's things that I know. So I know what it takes maintenance-wise. I know it's easier to maintain. I know it's easier to establish. I know what uses the right amounts of water. Just factors that are important that usually aren't given a lot of consideration early on.
Thank you. And I will tell you, I think we've all carefully read what you and others submitted, but we ask these things publicly so people know what we know, so at least in part. So
I'm sure I was fairly brief online because slow when it comes to internet.
yeah.
I'm a tree person. I'm not, like I say, I concern myself more with how things grow and not much on the technical side.
Thank you. And the second question, what do you think an appropriate compensation, I'm reading 3 lines down. What role do you believe the tree committee should play in Littleton?
As far in the public spots, like I say, I think that you need to anticipate not just what you have, but what's going to become of it. So you need to anticipate down the line what a tree is going to do, what it's going to give you. So you don't have to move it, so you don't have to maintain it a lot, so you have space. I think it could do for citizens. I think that they could get a lot of input in the same way, so that they don't make mistakes. Like they have the tree program here. I think it's a great program, the trees that you sell in the spring, but they come bare rooted. They come small, and they don't look like much. You can make a mistake. So 5 years down the road, when you baby this thing and get it established, you're going to find, oh my God, this is in the wrong spot. This should have gone here and this should have gone there. And it's, I think it's important so you're not going around in a big circle, doing things twice. If you do it right the first time, and got generations of trees.
And so what would you see the tree committee doing specifically about that?
Opening themselves up for questions, being available to answer. If there's I don't know how it's set up now, but there's certainly, if there was an openness or a place or someone that you could contact, that they don't have to, mess with the city arborist or the city planning people. That it could just be a direct thing to someone that knows.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeff?
I don't know, I have a question for you, but I will just give you a little piece of information. Been working through the city arborist and the South Suburban, because we're in the South Suburban Park and Recreation District, with their arborist as well, about a tree planting project we're looking at doing this spring along the South Platte River. And we've got a nursery who is giving us a discount on trees, and we're looking at different sizes. Some of them will have to be planted by a contractor because they're going to be larger than what volunteers can plant. But we're looking at having a major volunteer planting day along the same time in late spring. So we probably need to involve the tree committee with that aspect as well. We've got some church groups who said they'd like to do some volunteer work for us, so I think we've got a group that would be willing to help plant, but sometimes they need a little, maybe supervisory, shall I put it that way?
Okay.
And I see that as a skill that you might be able to provide for us.
Yeah, because it's a one-shot deal to get them planted right. I mean,
Yeah.
getting them planted quick and having a goal, it might be a little too lofty. You might want to, I am a contractor and I've been doing it 30 years, so I know what it takes. But if you don't get it right, then that tree's you're going to stun it. You're going to be disappointed. Like I say, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
One thing, if you are a contractor and you're on the committee, you're not allowed to bid.
Oh, well, that's good.
Just let me throw that in.
That's neither. That's not why I'm here. So.
Well, given how much people love staying once they come to Littleton, I'll tell you, you need to talk in terms of 30 and 40 years. Because there's a huge evergreen on my corner, spruce, that I should have planted back at least 5 feet further 30-some years ago.
I don't think I've got 30 years to be concerned about personally, but I can certainly help you out.
Well, I didn't mean that. I just meant in our advice to people,
Oh,
is,
yeah, definitely.
thinking, I thought I planted it plenty far back, but that puppy grew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, and you don't see it for here. Things tend to stay the same for 3-4 years, and then all of a sudden,
Well, I thought I followed the instructions that came with it when I bought it, in a container, actually. But they probably didn't anticipate my having it that long. I don't know. So.
must have just done everything perfect.
Greg, I served on the liaison to the tree committee for 4 years, and one thing that I can tell you, that having committee members that have the kind of knowledge you have is beyond important to the committee, because the committee does run the tree sale, And I've been down there when they're doing it, and the questions from the public are almost overwhelming, because and you're right, I mean, I killed one. But,
I've killed more than one.
Well, they don't
I
come
mean,
in, they don't come,
I've replaced it, it's doing well, but, because I learned my lesson.
they don't come in the best of shape either, a lot of them, so.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is important is to have a committee where we've got that knowledge built up, and it's a combination of having the knowledge people and then the workers, because it's
Right.
a lot of both. But I think bringing up all the knowledge is important.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, it's my opportunity to give back. I've been here almost 15 years, so.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any other questions, anybody? Okay, well,
Wait, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is the very important question. I see that baseball is part of your courses of study.
Yes.
Could you state your position on aluminum versus wood bat?
It's all wood. It's all wood. I still play it. Yeah, I still play in the men's senior league, and we play all wood bat. So, yeah.
Having spent 10 years in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
What position do you play?
I catch.
Okay. We will spend some time with deliberations this evening, and not sure exactly how it's all going to unfold, but we will be back in touch with you in terms of whether you got appointed to a committee or not, and then we'll make an announcement, do a public vote on that on either the 6th or the 20th. And then if you're selected, you'll start serving your term in April. If you aren't selected, we'd like to hold your application in case there should be another vacancy that pops up, and we just need to get your permission to do that.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
No, you did. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Make sure you get out of here early tonight.
Oh, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, bye now.
Thank you.
Oh, Bruce, I'm in the handshake.
It's
It's just,
Yeah,
it's
they
not the
first.
spot. You kind of like get the
No. Yeah, you gotta do one of these things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What kind of deal did you get?
All right.
The next lady's not here, but Nicholas is here.
Do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
come on in.
Oh, man, it means I got to be ready sooner.
All right. Warmed up.
Yeah.
Wow. Going to the bullpen, so to speak.
Nick?
Nick, Phil Cerniak. Nice to meet you.
Hello there. Nick?
Sorry about not getting up.
I'm Nick.
Good, how are you doing? Oh, sure.
Welcome. This is Nicholas Kurtz, and you go by Nick?
Yes.
Okay. And we've got you down as your number one choice is historic preservation,
Yes.
and your second choice is the museum board? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just a couple quick questions for you, and then we'll get into the real questions. Where did I do it? Okay, just a minute. The Historic Preservation Committee meets on, or board meets on,
Third Mondays.
geez, Deb,
Tuesday.
the third Monday
Monday.
of each month. Do you have any conflicts with that? Okay. And the museum board meets on the first Monday of each month. Would you have any conflicts with that?
No conflict.
Okay. So, also want to let you know that you're being televised this evening, and neither one of those boards are currently televised, but in the event that we would ever decide to do that, want to make sure you're comfortable being on air with your decision-making and conversation. Okay, thank you. So historic preservation, Phil?
Yep. Nick, thank you for your service with the Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts and that. And so, a personal side of the question, Civil War Roundtable. Talk a little bit about what that is.
We meet on the second Thursday of the month and just discuss the Civil War. I mean, there's a presenter every month, and it's usually just called from the membership, so I do a lot, but I mean, everybody, whoever has an interest signs up for a meeting, and they talk on whatever they, kind of had an interest in, and some meetings are more of a lecture type format, and some are just more of a real roundtable discussion. But
How did you get interested in that part of history?
when I was in high school, a friend of mine gave me a copy of Killer Angels. That's about the Battle of Gettysburg, and that just hooked me in.
Oh, interesting. Well, historic preservation, kind of a term of art. Maybe you can talk about your view of the role of historic preservation and what you know of Littleton.
Well, with the Civil War, we're mostly focusing on big tracts of land, but here it's buildings and whatnot, and preserving the integrity of the view and everything. So, sorry, what was more of the question?
Well, your role of historic preservation within the city.
Yeah, I think you need to have. I think the way the downtown looks, and it's great, and you wouldn't want some sort of crazy, neon lights and everything down there. It's a real nice old town feel, and it's good to continue to preserve it that way.
Well, thank you. The committee itself is quasi-judicial, and in that, expectation is folks kind of elevate their own knowledge and understanding. There's the opportunity to participate for the board members in training once a year that's referred to as Saving Places. It's done on a Thursday and Friday in Denver, and my recollection, it's in February. Would you have any problems in freeing your schedule to participate in something like that?
No, I don't think that would be a problem at all.
On the committee are a number of architects. At least as I read through your resume preparation, you're not an architect?
No, I'm not an architect.
Okay. Architects tend to have this professional background, career background around some of the issues. Talk about your experiences, your life experiences in areas where you've interfaced with folks that may have a much deeper professional background, but still you're bringing your concerns and input to the table.
Well, most of my connections in that respect might be with the Civil War stuff, where I'm in contact a lot with guys who went to school to be a historian. I do have a history degree, but they're teaching and tenured, and they spend their time writing Civil War books. And I have a slightly different vantage point because I didn't go through academia that way. But you need the different viewpoints to on the different interpretations of the war. So it's just one way you kind of combine the two.
Well, thank you. In that, intimidated, not intimidated, how do you kind of make sure that it's level set?
I've been studying the Civil War for a long time, so I dive right in, and I can hold my own with those guys. I'm not worried about that.
And one of the things that happens is each one of our boards and commissions is somewhat advisory to the city council, and decisions can be appealed to the city council. Sometimes there's an allowance for input, but very often it's without the opportunity to provide a tremendous amount of input to the council. Talk about times where maybe you were emotionally involved in a decision, or at least felt some level of passion around that, provided a recommendation or a decision that moved to a different level, but it doesn't come out the same way that you thought it should.
Not to continue to jump to the Civil War, but we used to do a symposium every year. In the fall, we'd bring in outside speakers. It was a pretty good event, but it was trouble finding enough volunteers within the group to always do it. And it was a little bit getting sort of nationally known. We were in papers and things, and the last year, people just didn't want to volunteer, and I was willing to go forward with it, but I mean, at the end of the day, if the rest of the roundtable didn't want to do it, there wasn't much I could do. I mean, I can't run an event like that on my own. You know, all the caterers and travel arrangements, and I really wanted to continue, but they couldn't. So,
you may be aware there's always a continuing discussion of tension between public good and private property rights. Talk about your own life experiences where maybe you've had to grapple with those kinds of issues.
in my own personal life, boy, I can't think of much where I've had to.
And then what's your philosophy on that? Particularly going towards, say, a non-consensual designation.
I think, I mean, you always need to try and get a consensual agreement. But I mean, if someone wanted to knock down a building and put up something that was vastly out of the character of the rest of the downtown area, I mean, you almost have to step in and be like, that just would be, even though it's one single building, it would be such a blight on the rest of the thing, it would detract from the entity as a whole. That, I mean, I don't know what power you have to stop all that, but I mean, you would want to try and block that as much as you could so that you preserve the sort of feeling that you have downtown.
When dealing with historical rehabilitation or restoration, there's exactly like the original, and then there's not quite exactly like the original for various different reasons. What's your level of purity?
I would think that you should, well, I mean, first off, you should try and find, original materials, but if they're too expensive or something, I think it would be fine if you find something that, is modern but looks right. Like in the case of windows, those old windows aren't going to be very, I can't even think of it. But, energy efficient, yeah, there you go. But I mean, new windows would be, and you could get a new window that is energy efficient and looks original without necessarily being original. And most people wouldn't know until, unless you're a real expert on it. We go, well, that window looks, it's not right. But
Thank you. Nick, I defer.
I've met him a couple times, but I don't really know him so well.
You live over on the west side of town. Are you familiar with the historical designation movement in the Arapahoe Hills area there near Berry and Lowell?
Yeah, I've seen the signs around, that say Arapahoe Hills, and walk in the neighborhood that you can tell that there's houses that, were probably put up in the 50s or something that look right. And then there's houses where it looks like they've knocked down maybe 2 lots or something and put up a really giant, modern-looking house. But I don't know the ins and outs of the argument over there, the issue in play.
The reason I bring it up is that historical designation may be involving structures throughout the city, not just the downtown, and that is an area that many of the people that live there have an interest in achieving that designation. And there are other isolated locations around town where property owners have decided to move that way.
Oh, museum.
Would you like to be?
Okay, do you visit the museum?
Yes, I've been there. We're going with our Cub Scouts in a couple of weeks there.
Uh-huh. Hold on, because I need to scribble too while I ask the question. So, what do you like about the museum?
I like the outdoor areas where, it's kind of a working farm sort of aspect, and the blacksmith shop and that sort of thing. I think the kids enjoy looking at that sort of thing when we're there, wandering the grounds.
second. What is your philosophy about the role of the museum in Littleton?
I think it needs to be a good repository of the history of Littleton and continue. I think you need a good rotation of exhibits so that it isn't stagnant, that people go once and it's like, oh, I've been there, I don't need to ever go again, sort of thing. Nice how it shows the earlier history of Littleton and that back in the old working farm sort of area.
What is, discuss your experience with other cultural institutions.
Personal involvement with them, or just visiting, or?
Any old experience you've had.
Oh. Well, I mean, I go to a lot of Civil War battlefields, and we visit all the museums we can find there. And so, I mean, I love hanging out in museums and libraries, and so go to quite a few.
Have you been east to the battlefields?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've gone back to Tennessee and just camped out on battlefields for weeks at a time, and a little bit of reenacting as well. So.
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up question on that then. What are your ideas for increasing attendance at the museum?
I think, the rotating exhibits, I mean, that would help, bring in people and always having new events and things. It seems like there's already a pretty good job of that being done. The list of scheduled events I've seen online, I haven't been to many of those, but it seems like there's always something going on at the museum.
Thank you. And given the possibility we always have of budget shortfalls, what, if anything, would you cut from the museum budget and why?
Offhand, I kind of looked at the budget, but without getting more detailed behind some of those numbers, I don't know where you'd actually cut. Offhand, you can't say, I would get rid of, administrative costs are too high. So, I don't know that you can really say that now until you, maybe get more reports on it. It seemed like the budget I saw online was mostly numbers. So, I don't know where without, background info, I don't know what you would say to cut per se.
Thank you.
Call or email, I'm not sure, letter. Then we'll probably make our final announcement either the March 6th or the 20th, and we'll do a vote on that, and then you would begin starting your term in April, if selected. If not selected, we'd like to hold on to your application in the event that we have midterm resignations or something, we'd like to go back. We need your permission to do that. Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I got some comments from the email last night. What was that clicking noise?
Ah, that was you, yeah.
So now I'm putting this on mute and when I talk, I'm going to get to my water.
Yeah.
Yes. These are problems that we're going to be dealing with.
Oh, so every time you do that?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When we look at our book,
Oh, that's good feedback.
I'm after tab 2, which has the possible appointments. I see the number which says number of vacancies in yellow lines. Okay, and I go down the page, but then I get to licensing authority. The parentheses indicates 1, but there's no yellow line.
Because there's already somebody in that, and he wants, the ones that are yellow lines are empty.
Okay. So,
There's no one in those positions already,
okay,
Such as a reappointment.
such as a reappointment.
okay. So,
You have to go back, look at section 1.
yeah. It's,
Well, I think so too.
I was just trying to make sure that I understood. So the number of vacancies is based upon,
Oh, it should be a 0, you're right.
Right.
It should be what?
Oh, okay.
It should be a 0.
Okay, so
Sorry.
you've assumed everyone that has requested
I've-
reappointment does that?
Yes, and I contacted, just because that was, I hate using that, but previously, that's the way we did it. And so back in November, I contacted everyone who was up for reappointment to see if they wanted to be up for reappointment. And I had some people who didn't give me that answer until the day before these books went out.
Okay.
So clarify also the tree committee then, because there are 2 yellow ones.
Oh, that should be a 2, sorry. I had someone,
So there are 2 openings.
there are. And I called everybody on the list. Christina Schaefer didn't show up. I left her a message. I called everybody on the list to tell them to come a little bit earlier. And Randy Duzen is here. Okay? So I'll go get it.
Moving right along.
Who's a planning commission now?
You want to go for it, or you?
Tina Schaefer's still not here.
Yes, that's what she just indicated.
6:20. If she's coming from downtown.
Don't want to hog it, though.
Hi, Randy.
How you doing?
Yep.
That is it?
The hot seat.
How you doing? Jerry.
Hi, Randy.
I guess, Bruce, please. Wait, everybody else.
Randy Duzen, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have you as your first choice is Planning Commission, and your second choice is Board of Adjustment. Is that still true?
Yeah, I just threw the board adjustments in there. I didn't really think about that one much, so
Okay,
if it's needed, then yeah.
okay. The Planning Commission meets on the second and fourth Monday of each month. Do you have any conflicts with that?
No.
Okay. And the Board of Adjustment meets on the third Thursday of each month
No conflict.
when needed, okay. And just want to let you know that we are being televised this evening on local channel 8, and the Planning Commission is a televised board and commission. The Board of Adjustment is not. Do you have any concerns or issues with making any decisions and speaking in public on
No
television?
concerns.
Okay, thank you. So, Planning Commission, we've got some questions from Bruce.
Randy, what we've got is we've got 3 questions, which I'm assuming you've seen,
Yes.
which are standardized questions we asked all the applicants for Planning Commission. I'm going to freelance here just a smidge at the outset after looking at your narrative statement again. After I get done reading the questions to you, then we'll ask the team to chime in and see if anybody has any follow-on exploratory questions.
Okay.
But maybe let me just give you the opportunity. It says here you've written zoning code and design guidelines, presented projects at public hearing, community meetings. Why don't you give us, the 30-second or the nickel tour of what that all means, if you would?
Sure. Obviously, the resume tells you I'm a landscape architect by education, and have pretty much, for about 20 years, been actually doing land planning. So most of the projects that I've worked on in the past 20 years have been master plan communities, anywhere from 100 acres to 20,000 acres. And so every one of those have involved some form of presentation to a planning commission, city council, county commissioner, and almost all of those involve some form of review of code, of existing code, but also it has involved writing amendments that may apply to the project. Specifically, I've written entire codes for a PUD, for large projects. The 20,000 acre development in New Mexico is one that I wrote the entire code for. On a few of those large communities, resort communities, primarily, I wrote the entire design guidelines with staff on my team. And so those are the types of things that those were for. Now, there have been a few smaller projects in Arapahoe County, 2-acre projects, infill projects where I've had to go to public meetings or community meetings, neighborhood meetings, some controversial, most of them controversial, but some were not so much. And so I've had some exposure to the neighborhood process also. So that's
Okay.
the nickel tour.
No, that's great. The Littleton's got a handful of properties that are more or less yet to be developed. Things like the Marathon property at Dry Creek and Broadway, Enser at Mineral and Santa Fe, so forth and so on. But for the most part, it's built out, so you know, I understand your experience. I guess talk a little bit about just sort of how you see the planning process with respect to some of these, maybe the infill or the redevelopment kinds of activities that we would be thinking in terms of seeing more here versus some of the stuff you've got maybe that type of experience with.
Right. Well, it is absolutely true that with the economy the way it is and the housing market the way it is, there's very little of that going on right now. And so infill and redevelopment is kind of the new target market for a lot of our profession. The Marathon oil site, which is still being called, even though it's owned by Richardson, it's on my radar because I live right by it. And that is definitely a large tract infill development in a way, and even though it's large, but probably should take on the characteristics of some of the newer urban infill type development, but definitely be compatible with the surrounding community as it moves further and closer to the east side. I think South Glen Mall, even though it's not Littleton, is a perfect example of a redevelopment project that has been successful, even in a down market. If we were in a positive, growing market, that place would be hopping even more so. So I think Littleton has an opportunity to take some of their smaller infill projects and I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know what the current Littleton code is right now. I haven't had to deal with it. But if a comprehensive plan is in the works, there's an opportunity to maybe adopt some of the new strategies for infill development, such as new urbanism, lifestyle centers, which is what South Glen is, where you have more of a pedestrian-oriented shopping environment. But on some of the tracks in Littleton where you only have a few acres, I think there's an opportunity to implement some of those newer concepts of urban development. The light rail has brought opportunity to Littleton also. And I don't know if there's any opportunity to capture some of that around the stations also.
Okay. All right, terrific. Let me go through the standard questions here, and then we can come back around and let other folks dive in. Talk about how you feel about regarding the balancing act that has to occur in the Planning Commission between the public good versus personal property rights.
I am a firm believer of personal property rights, and I feel they need to be protected at all costs. I think when the opportunity arises on the public side to do something that is beneficial to the community as a whole, not necessarily one developer or a smaller group of people that may benefit, but the community as a whole. Light rail coming in, needing land around a station is an opportunity where maybe property needs to be taken or purchased. But I do respect property rights.
Planning Commission is, in fact, tasked with revising the comprehensive plan, which they'll be getting into here this year. At what point in that process do you think it's appropriate to involve citizens?
As soon as possible.
Why?
Because the plan impacts the community as a whole. And so they're the ones who have to live with it. And so that's one reason. I mean, and there's also the fact that the community needs to be, or have the opportunity to be heard as early as possible, so that their opinions, their thoughts are early in the process. And it's not like halfway through the process, you now have a community meeting and we have these wonderful plans, and they say, well, we didn't approve that, or what about our ideas? And you have to kind of back up a little bit. I know there's because I've done it, I know there's a phase in any process where you have to do your homework and do some due diligence and preliminary work to get ready to go to the community. But as soon as that time is done, we need to involve the community.
Okay. The third question is sort of elaborate. It can be, in fact, challenging to distill abstract concepts into planning specifics while communicating with a diverse group of board members who each have their own perspectives, experiences, and viewpoints. How do you view managing this type of a process to keep deliverables on track with respect to a fixed timeline?
I read that question, and I wasn't exactly sure what it was saying.
Here's what it's saying.
Okay.
What the issue ends up being, there's enough projects and enough things that council would like planning commission to get involved with. Mm-hmm. And there's always been a dynamic balance between collecting how much information is necessary to make a good decision versus collecting a lot of information or all information in order to make a decision. Where do you balance information collection versus staying on timeline so you can get more projects?
Okay. The thing that threw me off was deliverables, because in my profession, that's what the client brings me, or that's what I bring the client. Okay. I bring them a product, a plan, a concept plan, a code. That's my deliverable. As a council member, as a commissioner, jumping the gun, council member. As a commissioner, I don't have deliverables. That's what people bring me to look at, and so I was a little confused. I think that that is true, that because I do this almost every day myself, I don't need as much information to understand what's being communicated, because I can read plans, I can think three-dimensionally, I can understand code, but I can see where another commissioner who's not trained in my field, either in the law profession or just a layperson, may need more information to understand it. So that is a tough question, to know what exactly the balance is. And I guess I can only say that maybe part of my role is to help understand some of that information and communicate it to the other. I don't know how the dynamics work on the commission, but that would be one way that someone who does understand it can help decipher it, for one thing. But the information needs to be, at minimum, enough to where the community can understand it too. And the lowest common denominator is the person sitting out there at a meeting. And so that's why in the field of design, we really do a lot of 3D modeling now, and we do a lot of visualization, and we do a lot of graphics, plan graphics, and so I think I would try to find that minimum, or that common denominator, that the lowest person in the audience or the less educated in the audience might understand it. I don't know.
Okay. All right, great. I'm going to invite the rest of the team to chime in here. Or not. I've got another question if no one else is. All right. You use the phrase new urbanism, and there is in fact some history with that phrase in Littleton, dating back to some comp plan or plan updates that were processed a few years ago. Mm-hmm. The dynamic sort of goes something like this. There's a strong sense of place in terms of the nature of the community as it exists. And the dynamic is when you do redevelopment and infill types of projects, how dense is dense enough to help support the business communities and provide more people in a given location versus too dense in terms of replicating Denver or whatever. And how do you decide, what are the factors you use to make decisions regarding when is something compromising character because it's too dense but needs to be upgraded from what it is today?
Right. That is there could be a long answer to that, but I'll make it short. It is a challenge because there is kind of this wave of thought in the APA, the American Planning Association organization, and city planners and the like, to push the new urbanist approach. Denver has adopted their form-based code, which is okay for Denver because Denver is urban. I don't think Littleton is urban enough. I am more of a when appropriate type person. And so
Say again, a what?
when appropriate.
Oh, okay.
I tend to look at things and determine if it's appropriate. I do not think, there's another term, T&D, traditional neighborhood design, that's used a lot. Stapleton is a T&D, the new development of Stapleton. But it is not a one-size-fit-all way to design. And so, for example, I would say downtown Littleton has a character and a charm that needs to be considered in any development or infill. And the way I determine density or the number of housing units or square feet of commercial oftentimes is that we hire a market research person, an economist, and they do their studies and they determine what the demand for housing or the demand for more retail square feet. And right now, if you hired somebody, the demand might be lower because jobs are down and the demand is down. And so you're going to end up designing something that's based upon fewer, the numbers are going to be smaller. We are experiencing projects right now that are having to be redone because the economics were based upon 5 years ago. And so projects that I've worked on already, they're having to resize everything downward, and they overestimated. And so it is hard to know exactly what to do. But personally, I think residential over retail, like we have in downtown Littleton, is appropriate in that setting. And unless there's a very good reason for it anywhere else, it's very hard to pull off. And a lot of places are doing it just because it's the thing to do. Developments in the suburbs up north in the past 10 years have put in these little they call them main streets, but they're 1 block long and they're surrounded by single-family detached houses, and there's nothing to support this little corner, whatever it is, because it's empty right now. And the people and the residents above it are empty because nobody really wants to live up there. And so they built them because it was the thing to do, and it's the trendy thing to do. And so I think it really needs to be understood that if you build it, the demand will be there. The traffic, the foot traffic and the vehicular traffic will be there to support it. So that's my answer. It depends. Depends on the environment.
residential, they did it
Right.
on top and then the retail.
Right.
Did they do it right?
I think they did it right.
Okay.
See, I think South Glen was already a mall. South Glen is surrounded by thousands of buyers and people. And now, I can't speak to whether or not their luxury condos are successful or not, and especially in this market. I frequent there a lot. I go to the corner bakery for coffee a lot. But I go there in the evening take my daughter over there to go to the movies or whatever, and the place is busy. People are walking around, kids are running around. If it has that activity, and I call it synergy, if you have synergy in a development, then you're going to begin to have that success. And so if they have that synergy in a market where everything's depressed, I call it a success, because in 3 or 4 years down the road, when things hopefully are back up, people are buying again, you get a Barnes & Noble, well, they may be out because we're doing internet books now, but an Eddie Bauer goes in there, or a name store will start filling the bigger shops. Then you get even more synergy that builds on top of what you already have. And so that works because you have the large retailers, I can't believe the number of restaurants is in that little shopping area. That's important to have restaurants. So everybody wanted restaurants in downtown Littleton because restaurants bring nightlife. And then nightlife brings people who want to live here because the nightlife's here. And so you got to create this synergy of multiple users 24 hours a day to begin to create community and activity. And so that's what downtown Littleton needs to do, is create synergy. South Glen has it, and they have quality design. Quality design is another large component of a good development. And people like to be where things are quality. Whole Foods, end of question, end of discussion. Whole Foods brings a lot of people. So.
Statement and 2 questions, Randy. One is, in contrast to what you were describing as the retail with residential over that didn't have success, I think one of the differences is what I refer to as mass, having a critical mass that's there, because traffic begets traffic in some way.
Right.
So we're social beings. We like to be around other people at some level. 2 questions. Earlier you referred to, and you were specifically talking about Marathon, but your answer, I'm not looking necessarily in that context, but you talked about newer infill and yet compatible with the surrounding areas. You got it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you kind of expand when you have that? What's your vision? And explain that a little bit.
How it looks compatible, or how do you achieve a compatibility?
What's newer infill? That's a term of art that I haven't heard before.
Oh, well, I guess infill's new regardless, because you're tearing down what was there and putting something new up. Infill development, and how is it compatible with its surroundings? Well, I think when I think of infill, I'm thinking of an area that's already urbanized to some degree, and that's different in downtown Denver versus the Littleton area. So compatibility to me is that it doesn't impose negative impacts on its adjacent existing use. So something that's too tall might impose a negative impact on a single-family home, but it may not have any impact on a 2-3-story apartment building. And obviously, something that is more of a light industrial, commercial, that might have heavier traffic, or may produce noises or smells wouldn't be compatible with a residential area. It may need some buffering with either less intensive commercial or something like that, or buffer, open space buffer. So I look at compatibility as how it impacts the adjacent use. If an infill development is sandwiched between two commercial users, then you're pretty much okay to put another commercial use in there. Then you got to deal with, even though you have a commercial use on either side, you may still have to deal with height. Say that the builder wants to come in and put 5 stories in, and the current use in the area is 1 or 2 stories. That's going to be out of character, unless the long-term plan is that everybody else on that block goes to 5 stories or whatever height is envisioned for that area. Such as, I actually own a house on Prince. I own one of the old Victorians. I used to have my office in there. And I was told at one time that Prince Street you wanted it to become a little more retail commercial, bring the houses or redevelop the area to where it's almost another Main Street. And so my vision for that house was to redesign it, remodel it, and bring the house forward so that it could have a commercial front and a residential back. And so if that's kind of the vision for a street, then somebody comes in with an application, you're going to allow them to maybe do that because you want that to influence the other houses or the other properties to do the same thing, because the vision in the long term is to have it have a different look.
And a follow-on to that point is, how does that vision get created, developed?
Well, it starts with the comp plan, community visioning, setting up ideas and do what's called a visual preference survey, where you show the community and other city officials examples of a character or a look of a street or a neighborhood, and help them visualize what it could be looking like. And then you end up with a set of goals and objectives. And then and that's really all the comp plan does, is it kind of gives you the vision. But then the next step would be to try to develop a code, a zoning code, a document that would allow that type of character to develop through setbacks, height, not bulk. The thing that's a little more of a challenge is the architectural character. How do you dictate architectural character? Now, form-based code does some of that. I don't necessarily like form-based code 100%. I like a lot of it, but not all of it. But it does require some fairly detailed zoning codes to get an exact look. But if you can give enough information for a builder to bring something in, and then the design review committee can evaluate if it fits into the character of what the comp plan says or whatever other document that was adopted.
Randy, our boards and commissions are primarily advisory to the council. Talk about your life experience, some point in time where you became passionate, attached to a recommendation that you were putting forth, but maybe didn't have the opportunity to provide a full level of education around that, and a decision comes that's not necessarily the same as what you would see through your lenses, but because it's being viewed by other lenses, might come out and down a little bit differently. How do you prep for that? How do you deal with it?
A personal experience or a professional, or either?
Either.
Okay, I got more professional experiences. I mean, there are projects, one in particular in Arapahoe County, where the neighborhood was opposed vehemently opposed to the idea. And I, being the great designer I thought I was, thought that the plan that we had submitted was completely within code, good design, even appropriate for the neighborhood in the way it was trending, but had to deal with a different attitude at a community meeting that was very angry. And then thinking that, okay, we got past the neighbors, now I'm going to go stand in front of the planning commission, and they should understand how this is such a good idea. Because I prepared a wonderful PowerPoint, I thought, explained all the reasons why it should be, and tried to explain and counter all the negative comments that the community had. And was faced with basically what I thought, and of course this is a personal opinion, a stacked deck already, a commission that was already determined, had already made up their mind, because the neighborhood was well connected to the commissioners. And so we even went to the political route of, meeting with the proper people, we thought. And so that's just one example. We were denied. Basically, we were denied, and I felt like it was denied politically and not what it should be on its merits of meeting code, being within all the standards, meeting all the technical criteria, engineering criteria. And so I was pretty upset, and that was my first loss at a planning commission. And so we just kind of pulled back and rethought it. Okay, now what do we do? And so we just had to change the plan a little bit, pull one of the units out, make it less dense. And we're talking 4 houses to 3 houses. And then go back to council again and do it all over again. And finally got it approved. But I guess one of my characteristics is that I'm a very patient person. And I don't get offended very easily. I get upset, and I feel bad that something that I thought should have been approved or should have gone my way didn't. But I guess I've learned in the past almost 30 years that we're in a business that it doesn't always go your way. And so you just have to retool and try it again.
Thank you.
Any more questions? So Board of Adjustments, do you want to get a couple questions on that?
Sure.
Okay. Jim?
And actually, I just only have one question.
Okay.
The Board of Adjustment is tasked with granting waivers or exemptions to parts of the code, and a lot of the, all of the cases that they get before them are self-imposed by the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
What's your interpretation? How strictly do you think that the code ought to be enforced in those cases?
You're saying that the hardship was created by the homeowner?
Yes, sir.
I was also president of an HOA, Southbridge. There's a lot of opinions over there. Well, my first response is that I don't think the code is necessarily a lockbox. I think there's always room for interpretation. But if a homeowner or landowner creates a situation, you have to wonder if they did it intentionally to try to get an adjustment. So there would have to be some pretty good documentation as to the hardship and how it maybe came about. And I have never been to a Board of Adjustment. I've never had to go to a Board of Adjustment, so I really don't know. I've just changed the code through a PUD. We just changed it to work for us. But I do believe that if there's a justifiable hardship, then it needs to be considered, and those do occur. So I'm going to be perfectly honest and say that it should not be granted if it sets a precedent. I don't know, every case in Board of Adjustments, individual, it doesn't impact other similar cases?
No.
Every case is taken individually?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so if it doesn't detrimentally impact health, safety, welfare, all those other items, then my tendency is to consider the merits of the case. If it's a blatant, this happened because he created it and it's just a blatant way to get around the code, then I'd be more inclined to say no. But I've seen enough situations in the profession to where something does come up and the code doesn't fit. And the situation has to be reviewed on its merits as to whether it's still going to be safe, appropriate, aesthetically okay. There's a lot of factors have to be presented.
I think you gave a good answer.
Good?
Well, thank you for your time. Does anybody have any other questions? We will be making a decision in the near future, these deliberations. Wendy will get back in touch with you, either phone or email or letter.
Okay.
To let you know our decisions. We'll be making a public announcement vote on either the 6th or 20th, and then the appointees will begin serving in April.
Okay.
If you're not selected, we would like to keep your application on file.
Sure.
As we have midterm resignations and stuff, and so we
Right.
just need your permission to do that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in and
Okay.
for all your time. And
I have one question.
yes,
On the Planning Commission evenings, the 1st and the 4th, obviously that circumstances come up where you might miss one or two, so, I mean, that does happen, right?
yes, we have an absentee policy, and Planning Commission's policy is a little more lenient than some of the others because of the frequency that they meet. And I can't recite it off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody.
That's okay, just-
knows it. But yeah, you're allowed to miss. It's when you get kind of heavy absenteeism, specifically when it's consecutive.
Oh,
So,
no.
But
I just
yeah,
occasionally,
absolutely.
travel for work or something might happen.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Great, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in, Randy.
Thanks very much.
And I live in one of those Southbridge areas.
Oh.
You have opinions.
Born in Indiana, raised in Phoenix. Went to school in Louisiana. Oh, okay. I'm 100 miles from different places.
Some people migrated across country and they took accents with them. So maybe that happened.
Yeah, possibly. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, and what is your name?
I wish somebody did.
Trina Fulton.
But I hear what you're saying.
We got way ahead and then barely behind schedule here.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Whoa. How you doing?
Doing well, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Did you say Trina?
Trina.
Trina,
Yes.
okay.
Did you want something to drink?
No, I appreciate that, thank you though.
Usually Bruce takes care of that, but
Trina Fulton? Yes. Thank you and welcome. It shows here that your first area of interest is the Historic Preservation Board?
That's correct.
Okay, and your second is the Building Board of Appeals?
Yes.
Okay. The Historic Preservation Board meets the third Monday of each month. Do you have any conflicts with that?
I do not.
Okay. And the Building Board of Appeals meets the third Wednesday of each month as necessary?
I can make that as well.
Okay, great. And just want to let you know that you are being televised this evening, and we don't have either the Historic Preservation Board or the Board of Appeals televised at this point, but want to make sure that if in the fact that you were appointed and we did decide to start televising, you'd be comfortable making decisions and having debate on TV.
Yes, I would.
Channel 8. Not KUSA or anything. Okay, so Phil has some questions for you on the historic preservation, and then we'll move to some questions on building board. Okay.
Good evening, Trina. I get to be your primary interrogator,
Okay.
and then we'll defer to the rest of the group and we'll move on. I see that you're an engineer, not an architect. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and what do you think is the distinction between an engineer and an architect?
Architects are mainly concerned with aesthetics, in my opinion, and engineers are more concerned with the loads that are involved in a building.
And do you ever have an architect argue with you on that?
I have not been involved in an argument of that nature, no.
Some of them may be concerned with structural ideas, but that's out of yes. With the historic preservation, it certainly is a term of art that's there. Talk about, you've lived in town for 4 years. Talk about your sense of what's the role of historic preservation in Littleton.
Well, I feel that to this point, the historic preservation has done a very good job of preserving sites and structures that are very important to the history of Littleton. And I think moving forward, the same is very important. Education, I think, is also important. Getting the news out there as to what structures and sites are valuable to the history of Littleton.
Thank you on that. Now, there is some quasi-judicial aspects to the Historic Preservation Board, so there's an expectation that folks will at least have some basic knowledge. There's some training that's provided through a conference called Saving Places that's done in Denver. It's usually on a Thursday and a Friday, and I believe the month is February. Would you have any challenges or difficulty in making yourself available to participate?
That I know of, no.
Now, as you may be aware, there's always this tension, and Littleton has had a continuing discussion between public or common good and private property rights. What's your philosophy around that? One of you had to grapple with that, possibly professionally or personally.
I have not had experience with that personally, but I do feel that private property is up to the owner what they will want to do with that property. I do understand and advocate negotiation, discussions, things of that nature. I don't believe that the city has the right to dictate to a private property owner what they should be able to do with their property, though.
Understanding that, I'll push it a little bit, and knowing what you've talked about as far as the benefits of a sense of place that comes with that, when might a non-consensual designation be okay?
I don't know that I feel that it is. History is very important. Knowing where we come from is also very important. But I don't know that I feel that it's right to do that. There are many ways that you can go about about going about doing this, and structures could possibly be moved to other locations if there are concerns about losing them. Things of that nature, I think, should be explored.
With our downtown historic district, there's some benefits. Two of those happen to be opportunity to apply for facade grants to rehabilitate or restore a facade, and then another is relaxation of parking requirements. If an applicant came to the table and you have a sense that maybe their motives are more bent towards obtaining the relaxation of parking requirements, what are some of your thoughts on how to deal with that?
So are you saying that by becoming a historic site, they have relaxation of parking benefits? Oh, okay. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I don't really know that I know all of the regulations that go along with that well enough to speak to that, though.
And if somebody said that's a provision that's in the code, it's part of it. It's not your judgment on whether that relaxation is there or not. Does that change any of your thinking?
If it is in the code and that is the way that it works, I don't know that I would see an issue.
And our boards and commissions are primarily recommendations or advisory positions to the council. Even though they may be quasi-judicial, decisions can end up being appealed to the council. There's not always, sometimes it's not appropriate, to allow for significant education on how a board has reached a decision when it comes to the council, possibly on appeal. Talk about, either professionally or personally, where you've made a recommendation or given advice that you felt pretty strongly about, but it's now being viewed through different lenses by a different body, and a different decision than what you thought should be made comes out. How do you deal with that or prevent that from happening?
Well, I have to say that professionally, I'm fairly young in my career, and so I don't believe that I've had the privilege of being in a situation such as that. I know that as a group, there are many different opinions and many ways to view a situation, and really the only thing that you can do is make your voice heard and hope that it's persuasive enough to see the outcome that you hope for.
Now, on the board, there are a few architects. Some folks would feel that, because of their professional background, they may be a little more steeped in some of that. Even in your short-term career, have there been occasions, or talk about ones where maybe you've gone toe-to-toe with someone that might have a different or deeper professional or technical background than you, but your opinion and concerns matter?
Well, I feel that I'm a fairly reasonable person, and I like to hear other viewpoints on things, and I think if two reasonable people sit down, that you can come to some compromise. It may not be everything that each person wants, but there are ways to work through things where you can meet in the middle.
I defer.
Building Board of Appeals? And that gets me. I noticed that your application, you are primarily a bridge engineer. Is that what I'm reading out of this?
Yes, the last 4 years of my experience is designing highway bridges.
And have you done other engineering work besides bridge work?
The first year and a half of my career I spent as a forensic engineer, mostly with residential structures. So the company that I worked for, we worked mostly for insurance companies. We went into homes that had a claim of some sort of structural damage, investigated provided any calculations necessary to the repair, and provided a report to the insurance company.
What about if you had any experience with construction, particularly, other than just providing the engineering plans for a project?
I have been involved in a lot of site work. Both jobs actually that I've had, I spent a lot of time in the field actually experiencing how these structures are constructed. I've spent many hours with contractors discussing their methods and learning from them, which I feel is invaluable. Something that a lot of engineers actually don't get the experience of.
A lot of the things that happens with the Building Board of Appeals is hearing appeals from citizens or groups that need an interpretation or a violation of the codes, or how the code is being applied to their particular situation. How strict or do you think that the building code should be?
I feel that an all-encompassing building code is fairly unrealistic. There are always scenarios that are hard to come up with while you're writing a code. And so I feel the purpose of a building code is to provide guidance to engineers and builders to create a safe structure with factors of safety regarding things that they may not know for sure. So I feel it's a guideline, and there are always scenarios where there are gray areas that may not be specifically covered in a code.
Good. That's all I have. Anybody else have a question?
Okay. Just to let you know, we will be... We will be deliberating and making a decision, and Wendy will get back in touch with you, either email or phone or letter, and then we will publicly take a vote on it on either the 6th or the 20th of March, and then if you're selected, you begin your service in April. If you're not selected, we would like to keep your application in our records. We often have midterm resignations, and we would like to go back and resource those who we've already spoken to. So just need to have your permission to do that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Trina.
I think our next one is Brad. And I think that is our last one, too. I think so.
Yeah. 'Cause
Unless the two that were outstanding have somehow shown up.
And I looked out and they hadn't, and I don't think Christina's shown it either.
So we have Christine, but I was also talking about Standish and Jason.
Hey. You're the last one, right? Brad, there was no one else out there, right?
There is nobody else out there. It's crickets.
It's
you, crickets. All right. And Jim.
Phil Serene.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
Good.
How are you?
You want a water?
Water? Yeah. Is this the hot seat?
That is it.
You better get on your stick here. You've been sitting in the wings all night.
I have been studying,
You're okay then.
Brad, thank you for coming. Welcome. We have you as Housing Authority as your one and only choice, correct?
Correct.
And the Housing Authority meets on the first Thursday of each month. Do you have any conflicts with that?
It's fabulous.
Okay. Want to let you know you're being televised this evening, and in the event, currently the Housing Authority is not televised, but in the event that we would decide to do that, make sure that you're comfortable.
Fine.
Okay? So Housing,
Get my good side.
so Jerry?
Great. Hi, Brad. All right.
Sure.
You got a list of the questions, I presume?
I briefly glanced at some of the questions, yes.
All right.
There was only like 2 or 3 of them, so.
I have a couple extra ones.
Jerry made up some other ones.
That's
just to throw you off.
fine. Just for
Y'all
everybody.
can thank Jerry for wrangling me here tonight.
That's right.
He makes us all feel humble.
That's right, that's right. If and when the Littleton Housing Authority submits an application to HUD to redevelop one of their family housing sites, it would require neighborhood meetings, zoning, and construction. How would your interest and experience assist the Housing Authority in the process as a board member?
Well, I guess I could start with my 3 years of planning commission experience on that one. 6 years of real estate experience, including land sales and development, as well as multifamily sales over the last 2 or 2.5 years. So I've actually been working with the Lakewood Housing Authority for a little over 2 years to help them sell off 90 properties in their portfolio so that they can redevelop land that they banked along the light rail lines, the west light rail lines. So I'm intimately familiar with the Housing Authority's purpose in life and what they're trying to accomplish for low-income housing. I should say low and no-income housing. Familiar with the Section 8 program. I actually own a rental property in Lakewood that I have a Section 8 tenant. I really don't know what else I could say other than I wouldn't have any issues with that. I mean, that'd be right up my alley.
Sounds like it. What do you think the role of the Housing Authority should be in the community as far as maintaining and/or enhancing neighborhoods?
Maintaining or enhancing neighborhoods, well, what I've seen in my experience with Housing Authority properties is they're usually the nicest properties in the neighborhood. You know, they'll get HUD money and go in and they'll take properties and make them nice. And I think that benefits the entire area. It also helps with the type of tenant they're able to get in there, and I think that the tenants that are on these programs have a healthy respect for their opportunity. Those that don't get to stay. Those that do take really good care of their place, from what I've seen. And it can be a real big benefit to the community at large. The other thing I enjoy, and the reason why I'm even applying for this, is as far as the Housing Authority's charter, what I believe in is their ability to help stabilize the kids, the families. So when families are able to take advantage of these programs, it's the kids that benefit, and it really gives them an opportunity to stay in one place, to go get an education, and you know, a lot of these families, they move a lot, they're everywhere, and if they can get on these programs, they can really benefit, the kids can really benefit.
Great. What do you think the Housing Authority's role is in as far as affordable housing in the community? What do you think the Housing Authority's role is?
I'm not sure. I think that's what they're all about, right? I mean, I'm not sure how to answer that question. I mean, the Housing Authority exists to provide low-income housing in communities like ours and in other areas of the metro area.
And affordable.
Well, affordable, because some of the people that are in there don't have any income at all. You know, my tenant in Lakewood is a single mom with 3 kids, and for her to go get a job, it would cost her more in daycare than that she'd make. So, you know, that's why I say low to no income, because some of them have no income at all.
You're familiar with the IRS Section 42 code or the low-income housing tax credit?
I'm familiar with the tax credits, and I know a very good tax credit attorney, and I try to stay out of that stuff because it's not my expertise.
Are you familiar with any of the HUD handbooks or Section 8 requirements?
Well, I know all about the Section 8 requirements as far as what's required for the tenant and the landlord.
And as far as, do you have experience to be able to read or review financials?
Absolutely, I do that all day, every day.
One last question, I want to just piggyback on one of your answers. You said you helped the Lakewood Housing Authority with the sale of their properties?
Yeah,
What type of properties?
They sold off their what they call their public housing portfolio, which is fully subsidized by HUD. So the tenants that are in those properties do not pay much, if anything at all, in rent.
Thank you. I turn it over to the group. Thank you, Brad.
Jim?
Been along that west line,
Yeah.
on a couple of tours. Which area do they sell? Which station?
Well, their first development is Lamar Station.
At Lamar, okay.
Yeah, Lamar Station, which is one of the farthest west for
Right.
them. Yeah. But they have land banked along almost every stop.
I think one of the nice things that the Lakewood City Council did was when they knew the light rail line was coming out, they rezoned the properties in concentric circles from around the stations, so that when they do eventually develop, they've already got the zoning in place.
Right, and some of that, because it's so close to Colfax,
Right.
the light rail line runs along 12th, and Colfax is at 14th. So basically, they were able to piggyback on the Colfax rezoning.
And
Very smart.
through Dr. Cog, one of the catalytic projects that's going on that line is the development at the Denver and Jefferson County line at Sheridan, and it's a joint project between the counties and the cities to put
Yeah,
that together.
and that Sheridan Station is getting close to being ready.
Yep, it is.
Nice.
And I also would say, Jerry and I thank you for saying what you did about the houses that look nice, because we both have just left the Housing Authority, and we'd like to take credit for that.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, some of the owners that own properties in these neighborhoods do not take care of their properties. I can drive through a neighborhood now and I can spot a housing authority property just like that.
So can I.
Absolutely.
That is intriguing when you say that. Have you had a tour of all do you know where all the properties are?
For Littleton, I don't. I have sat down and I've met with Dan Burnham before. I know most of the housing authority directors in town, and I go to their annual conferences for the most part. So, Jerry, you saw me at the last NARO conference, right? So, I haven't specifically gotten a list of all the properties in Denver. I know where some of them are, but not all of them.
The reason I'm saying that...
I said Denver, I meant Littleton.
Yeah. The tour that council had last spring, I thought I knew most of the properties, but I discovered some that I didn't realize were...
Well, I live on Datura Street, and I can tell you there's several of them right by me.
Yeah.
There's some north of you. There's some north, and there's actually some south behind the school over there. And then there's some off of Prince that I've seen. Not knowing where they are, but just knowing what housing authority properties look like, and jogging and biking around the neighborhood. I know where they are.
Any other questions?
Some over by Cornerstone.
There are no other questions. Brad, we will be deliberating, and then Wendy will get a hold of you at some point by phone, email, letter, and let you know if we decided. We will take a public vote either on the 6th or 20th.
Public vote.
At council, make it official.
Oh, okay.
And then, if you're selected, then you begin serving in April. If you're not selected, we'd like to hold on to your application in the event that we have midterm resignations, and we need your permission to be able to do that.
Sure.
Okay.
And you live in District 2?
I live in District 2. Is that important?
It is.
Any other candidates from District 2? Please stand up.
That's great. Well, thanks, Brad.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'm the last one for you guys tonight, you can go home.
Well, I guess we're going to Skype another one in here.
You're the last one.
You were the last warm body we get.
Right on.
No, he's not. We've got a Skype.
That's gonna be interesting. Yeah, there it is. I was looking to make sure you were drinking enough coffee.
You know me, coffee. It's got to be hot, too.
Take care, guys.
Not just coffee. Thanks, Brad. All right, so we are going to do this after all.
Who
Yes,
is it?
sir.
Which one?
No, she can't see us though, right?
She won't be able to see you, but you'll be able to see her, I hope. And even if you can't see her, you'll be able to hear her.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna have her call right now.
What about the folks at home?
They'll be able to hear her too.
I asked the question, so.
Helen, so we are.
Kelly's Fine Arts Committee interests.
Hi Kelly, it's Wendy, go ahead and call in. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Brad is good, too. All right. There's nothing worse for television ratings than dead air, you
I'm
guys.
sorry. Talk amongst yourselves.
That's right. Say something. Now you're quiet. Come on, Bruce. Other times I'm like going, come on. Yeah. Put a sock on.
I don't think it is, because there is a pad underneath there. It's the noise of the keys.
One way to look at it is our ratings can only go up.
But you can not use this and just use the keypad, use this or use here.
Yeah, but
You got both, you got dual keyboards?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have one on your screen, so you can do your screen, which won't make any noise.
It's not ringing in the main.
Or this is the.
So Davy Jones died.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm not saying that.
so it might.
Throwing that one out there?
Yeah.
See if you get a reaction.
It's either that or dead time.
It's easier.
It's either that or quiet.
Just because you can use your full screen.
Yeah. So,
Definitely a big
when you
monkey.
buy that,
I was totally
This is.
Totally
for
psyched out
sound,
when I was a
but
kid.
I walked around the whole office telling people.
$100, or you can get it on Amazon.
People are going, ooh.
Yeah, I'll bet they did too.
And there's a case for it, and it has the keyboard, and it just shuts it.
But yours is, what is yours? What is that one?
Brookstone.
No, the computer, the iPad, what is that?
No, it's gotta be used. Apple.
Oh, that's an Apple, okay.
Yeah, but the case is separate, it's not sold by Apple. Apple sells almost no accessories anymore.
Here it is.
so
I got you, Kelly.
you got to do,
I'm hanging up the phone, okay? You're on.
All right.
Okay.
We're here, can you hear us? We're here.
Oh. Indeed.
Sure.
We work here.
hello, hello.
Kelly Stroman, right?
Yes, fine arts.
So, you said that's an Apple product. You also could do Microsoft?
They do have notepads too, but I don't know.
You do Apple at home?
Mm-mm.
You do a PC? And so they're
Have a laptop.
compatible?
On the iPad, you can't create documents, but you can import them.
Kelly?
You can't create a file on
I
here.
can't hear you, no.
You can import them and then edit them. You can save them. You can do that. You can do emails, all that stuff. Almost, you can do what you can do with an iPhone, but without the phone.
All right, go ahead.
It's kind of, a laptop does give you more functionality.
Yeah.
So we'd have to get the laptop to do the,
create a document. But the intention for us is not to create a document. It's to use this instead of our packet. So you can create your notes like I'm doing, my notes and stuff. And then I just,
Okay, can you hear me?
I can email these to me and print them out
Okay.
if I wanted to defy the paperless concept.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can do a phoner.
Kelly? Sorry, I left her a message yesterday so that we could test this, so
she's
this
calling
didn't
again.
happen.
Because we could do a phoner.
But I don't have a phone.
Have her call my cell and I'll put it on speaker.
I can hear you, Kelly. I can hear you, Kelly.
Oh, you can?
I can.
Hear you then.
I can hear you right now. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have you call, you have your cell phone, I'm going to have you call the mayor's cell phone. What's your phone number? I mean, what's your phone number? Hold on. What's your phone number, Mayor?
720.
720.
The world is going to know.
224.
224.
1314.
1314.
Change that.
Okay, so did you get that?
They could find me.
Yeah, Sarah. Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you on the thing, so we need to hang up. Okay, it's 720 224 1314. So just call that number,
Get into the modern world, I think.
1314.
Well,
Call that number and,
this is
huh?
Yeah.
interesting.
We had our Dr. Cogburn tree on Saturday.
720
A lot of people using those, so I asked how many hours
So
of
call
battery
that number
power.
right now, because nobody's.
He said it all depends on how many applications they've got.
Okay.
This says about 6. I charged it last night and I've been on it this whole time and I'm at 87% on my battery, so it should hold 6
Last year
hours.
still left.
Still left.
Still left 87. That's not.
You do have to charge the pad too. This thing needs to be charged because it runs off of energy. But I told, okay, here we go.
Noisy thing.
Sorry, it's done.
Hello? Kelly? Kelly?
Yes.
This is Mayor Debbie Brinkman. We have all of council here. Can you hear me?
Great.
Okay.
I can hear you, and thank you so much for your accommodations and working with me this evening. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, you are welcome. What we'll do is, because we're on a speaker with the cell phone, if you talk over when someone else is talking, then it mutes out. So when we're finished talking, we will say your name, and then when you're finished talking, you can simply say council, and then we'll know that it's safe to talk.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, so you're applying for the Fine Arts Committee, and the Fine Arts Committee meets on the third Thursday of every month, and there are quite a few extras that go along with that, with shows, et cetera. Need to make sure that you are okay with the time commitment of the committee. Kelly?
Yes, council,
Okay.
I am.
Okay. Then also wanted to let you know that we are being telecast at this point, so you are being broadcast, and that we do not currently televise the Fine Arts Committee, but in the event that we would, want to make sure that you are comfortable with being on television, making decisions, et cetera. Kelly?
Yes, council.
Okay, so I'm going to now turn this over to Bruce Beckman. He is a council member who serves as the liaison to the Fine Arts Committee, and he will ask you some questions. Kelly?
Thank you, council.
Kelly, are you able to hear me, Kelly?
Just barely.
Like, shortwave radio. Over.
Okay, we just made an adjustment. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Here, use this one.
Okay, we're going to give it a try for the first question. Are you ready for that, Kelly?
Okay.
Okay, Kelly, as a working committee, the Fine Arts Committee members are required to participate in a number of committee-related activities outside of the normal monthly meeting. These include hanging pictures at shows, marketing the shows, they do at least 2 shows a year, hosting receptions, processing art intake and removal. Are you available for that extended time commitment beyond that monthly meeting requirement, Kelly?
Yes. I would make myself available for all of those outside shows and meetings, etc.
Okay, thank you. Here's question number 2. If you are an artist, do you accept that you may not submit works into the Fine Arts Committee shows during your tenure on the committee, Kelly?
Yes, I do understand and would not submit my art into the shows.
Are you an artist?
I am, but I'm not to that degree.
Okay. Question number 3 is, how do you balance the idea of public expression with the sensitivity of a community in regards to public art?
Well, obviously, in pretty much everything we do, politics are involved, so you do have to be sensitive with everything that you do, especially when you're holding a role within the city organization. And so I think as long as you are sensitive and take into account how everyone would react. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry, it's just I'm getting a lot of feedback.
We're hearing you fine.
Okay, thank you. As long as you are sensitive to and taking into account all the different demographics, then you can balance art and the public. I think that's what you were asking. It's kind of, like I said, I'm getting a lot of feedback, so I believe I've heard the question correctly.
Okay, how's it now? Can you hear it any better?
Yes, so much better.
Okay, great. Yeah, you pretty much understand the question. Would you go into a little more detail, however, when you obligate yourself to take art in, you don't necessarily get the chance to negotiate what art is going to be submitted, and then it's only upon the arrival of that art that you realize that you have something probably based on somebody else's input that could be considered sensitive to other members of the community or something that they really don't want. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. I think that you have to, and art is an expression of everybody's individual. And as long as you can relay that and make sure that people understand that, that it's not necessarily what we think or how we, it was our perception, but that was what the artist, feelings and perception of it. So, I mean, and that's what makes art what it is everybody has a different take on it.
Okay, let me ask you a second, number 4 question. And this is not an either or. It's just an opportunity for you to express a desire or an opinion. The Fine Arts Committee has been working hard to develop a strong conservation and acquisition balance with their budget. The balance is between conserving and acquiring. where does your preference lie, in acquisition or conserving?
I think you have to have a little bit of both. And what I mean by that is you have to spend a little bit to get develop the interest and let people aware of, for example, the fine arts within our community. But I think you also have to be creative with the spending and think of maybe some alternatives that and ways of doing things that we may not have always followed, and to be conservative and look at ways of cutting back in a creative manner. And whether that is, trying to look at donations and the such versus just going outright and spending. So I would say to directly answer the question, I would have to say conservative, but you would have to, but in a creative manner.
Okay, there's a little misunderstanding. Rather than conservative, it's the conservation idea that you may already have some art on board, and it's going to take some effort or some money to keep it in an appropriate manner, and that's going to butt into your acquisition fund. Do you have a feeling of how that balance is going to occur?
How that balance is going to occur? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah. As an advisory committee, what advice would you give the council or the rest of the board when you're making the balance between conserving what you already have or spending the money to acquire something different?
Well, I would have to say it's a tough question. I would say that I am all about acquiring something new. I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, versus and keeping things fresh. Is that? I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly.
That's fine. Let's move on to the last question. It kind of relates to what you addressed previously. The question is, given the possibilities of budget shortfalls, what, if anything, would you cut from the fine arts budget and why?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily the shows and the such, but I would think that, and maybe we wouldn't have to make cuts necessarily. I think it comes back to the fact that of just being creative of how we can make what is currently in place work, but just in a different manner, and then even maybe adding to it, because in this day and age, everybody's wanting to cut, but if we can look at a different way of doing things versus just going straight in and making a cut. But if needed, then we would just look at the maybe the things that are low in attendance and evaluate those firsthand, before moving forward with the bigger items.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. That ends my questions. I'm going to give us a moment here while we get the phone back to the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Just one mic and one phone.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Oh, you can just ask her up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ask her what level of familiarity she has with the city's art collection, outdoor art collection, and what she thinks of Solar 3.
So Kelly, I've noticed on your application you've been here for 18 months. In that time, have you had an opportunity to take a look at any of the city's outdoor art collection? And if so, in particular, Solar 3?
I have to be very honest, I have not. I just actually became aware of the fine arts committee and even the program within, I would say, the last 6 weeks. And that was because of Sarah Trujillo met her, we were talking about our kids and being affiliated within dance programs and kind of our background. And she hit it off, and she was like, you know what, you would be a great asset for the Fine Arts Committee. And I just did a little research on the website and kind of went from there. So I have to be very honest. I have not seen any of the actual fine arts
Okay,
programs.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, Kelly, there are no more questions. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't. I just want to reiterate, I appreciate you working with me on this circumstance. I'm hardly ever out of town, and it just fell on this week that I am out on a training session in Dallas, Texas. So I appreciate it, and I apologize that I am having a really hard time hearing and communicating. So I appreciate you taking that into consideration.
Oh, absolutely, no problem. Wanted to let you know that we will be deliberating, and Wendy will be back in touch with you as soon as we've made our decisions. And in the event that you are chosen for the committee, you would start your attendance at the meetings in April. And if in fact you are not selected, we would like to hold on to your application in the event that we do have midterm resignations. We like to go back to our original applicants and see if there's interest. We just need your permission to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
No problem.
Thank you so much, and try to have fun in Dallas.
Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. All right, so we have no more applicants. Then can we have a break? That's good, Phil. Let's come back at 5 after.
And then we're going to start deciding.
Wendy?
it's troubling me to the point where I want to bring it up and have a bit of a discussion and then possibly make a change in procedure. We have an awful lot of candidates or awful lot of openings that we don't classify as openings because the people have been asked if they would like to be reconsidered for the board. And we don't spend any time making any deliberation on reconsideration, and we usually just typically put them back on. But I'm somewhat of a mind that it would be a lot more fair process if we treated those applicants as also applicants in a similar fashion where their names and their applications are put in the same hopper, and we then consider all of them for the openings. So, for example, if we've got a commission that there's 3 openings and we've had 2 of them that are people asking to re-up, and we're really only interviewing for 1 position, and we may have 4 applicants for that. And it's always been difficult for the public to understand that. I know Wendy's struggled with that, and it seems odd to say, yeah, we have an opening, but we're not interviewing for it. And I think the fair thing to do is to put everybody back in the pot and do fair interviews with all. So I would recommend, and I want to hear what, council has to say about this too, but if we were to ask all of those who have said, yeah, they want to be re-upped, if we would ask them to submit, if they'd be willing to submit an application.
For this year?
Yes. And we would have time to do it because we do not have to do anything publicly, the vote or anything until, I think, March 20th would be our latest. There's time for us to get that message out to them. We could get it out tomorrow, give them a week or so to get it back, get it in our packets, and we can discuss it then on the 13th. And if council wanted to, I think we could fit time in to interview them if they wanted to be interviewed. I don't think, I think that could be a voluntary thing, but it just seems to me that at this point, there is a fairness issue that I'm just not comfortable just moving people on without doing some level of reconsideration. I mean, if we do that 3 times in a row, that's serving 9 years. Council's changed 4 times during that time. We have new leadership in the city. We've got a new set of goals and objectives, and I think we need to build a board and commission group that meets those needs. And so kind of making it a little bit more open. And I will go Jim and then Peggy and then Bruce. Did you?
Sure.
Okay.
2 things. Number one, I believe many years ago, and as you guys know, I've been around for a while, we did take into consideration each person who was asking for reappointment to a board or commission, and had various levels of discussion about whether they would or would not be reappointed. So we're not breaking new grounds to do that. Secondly, I would be very uncomfortable trying to make a decision tonight on the applicants we've interviewed over the last 2 nights. We've had some very good applicants, very strong applicants. I took copious notes about what each person was saying. I tend to script close to verbatim of what's being said, and I need time to look at that. I did not even have time today to look at what I took last night, so I'm very far behind in trying to review all of those, and I really would like for us to not make a decision tonight on the interviewees, but set that for a future date, whatever date happens to be, to make a decision about that. So if you tied a delay of not making the appointments that we've interviewed over the last 2 nights along with looking at people who've asked to be reappointed all at the same time, I think would be a plus for us to do, a very positive for us to do.
Peggy?
I agree in part with what Jim said. I surely could use time to digest my copious notes too. But in terms of asking people to apply, at this point, this year, I do not think that's fair to everyone involved. There are a lot of citizens who might have applied if they'd known there were going to be more potential openings if we didn't reappoint somebody. And although I think we have some generally very outstanding candidates, I'm not sure that that we have all the options we might want if potentially we'd say we didn't want any of the, just in theory, any of the existing reappointment people. That's not a comment about whether I would think we wouldn't want any. It's just, a theory. But it seems to me this is not the time to be deciding to do that. Now, if we had, in the past, we've had information from chairs about attendance records and all that. We don't even have that this time. So,
We do.
do we?
You
And
have
I
their
missed it?
attendance.
I missed it?
Their attendance is included in the book on
Jeez.
Section 1.
on each of the, under section 1, on each one of the boards, in
Somehow
red
I-
over on the right.
Okay, so somehow I
It
missed.
says 3
I
of
missed
3,
that.
2 of
Oh,
3.
I
I
did
just
see
took
that.
out
I'm
the
sorry.
big section
But we
because-
didn't see whether or not they're justifiable absences, right?
We don't do it like that anymore. They're
Well,
either
I know,
excused
but
or
I mean-
unexcused, or they're either present or not there.
Right, but given the fact that some people are absent for business, whatever,
We don't note that anymore.
I know. Anyway, but I think what I was meaning was the more information piece. Not that we didn't have this, because I did look at that. Anyway, I just think this is not the time to make that decision, to ask them to reapply.
Bruce?
I guess I think stepping back on this, the context is the desire, I think, is to raise, the bar and broadly, and I think that's what we're doing as a council for staff, and I think it's wholly appropriate to have that expectation for the boards and commissions. I think to a large extent their desires themselves is to provide more value, and I think the way to do this maybe is to shuffle the deck a little bit. Peggy, respect your point. I guess the other side of that coin is, people applied who applied if they wanted in and they wanted to take a shot. I think the opportunity was there, and it's not that they won't have the opportunity in the future. But I guess my feeling would be that from a proactive leadership perspective, what we're trying to do is the best job we can to best serve the needs of the community. And I think what the mayor's proposing sounds like that would fit the bill.
And I would add to that we don't need, or we don't have to reappoint them. They've asked to be reappointed, but we will make that decision. And we cannot reappoint without having them interview or without having that. And I guess this is an opportunity to kind of extend more of an opportunity for them to be, as I say, play more fair, more even-handed than to just not reappoint. But we don't ask them, we don't bring them in and interview them or any of that to approve them, so, Jim?
Well, the news release that Kelly put out listed every board and commission member and what nights they were meeting on. And I'm thinking that there was a second one that went out at some point in time that did talk about the numbers and where the vacancies were. I do remember seeing the one about every board and commission and their meeting nights. But I think that we would be well served to take a look at everybody.
So there's 20 folks seeking reappointment, is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are 20.
It would seem to me that if we decide to go that direction, that Wendy contact them some way and ask them to do the same sort of application that we got in here, whether, I don't know how this came online or how this was done.
We get them online and then I retype them all because they don't come out right online when I print them out, so.
That might be something we need to work on.
Been trying.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Bruce?
Quick clarification, are we talking about asking just the people who are interested in reappointment to provide these applications, or everyone? Just the ones that are up for reappointment?
Up for reappointment. And I think it would be, if they wanted to let their old one stand and we had it, I think that's fine. If they want to submit a new one, that's fine. If they don't want to, but they still want to be reappointed, am I making your job just a nightmare, Wendy?
Do we have them?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I don't know. It depends on how far back they were.
Well,
first
that's true.
appointed.
If it-
I mean, I probably
would need to
have them.
update.
It's just,
You're not in your point.
Well,
You're not in your point.
my application probably was done in 1981.
well, I probably still have it, Jim.
It's probably
Somewhere.
a microfiche somewhere.
Well, maybe the option would be either do one or not, and we would still consider. Bruce Beckman, did you?
Yeah, I think this goes a little bit to being one of the newer members on the board. As a city council member, I don't know many of the folks on the boards and commissions. It would give me an opportunity to know them, number one, which I think communication is good, and that this is a pretty basic form of communication. It's for the members of the boards and commissions to come forward and introduce themselves to the sitting council, and let the council know what their qualifications are. The second part of it is then you have ownership, and as I select someone to be on a board, I have actually skin in the game. These are the people that were impressive to me and who I felt deserved the opportunity. So it's a two-way thing. I think the critical side of me says that anything that will improve communication between boards and commissions and council is good. Anything that reinforces the fact that, it's just a fact of life. The boards and commissions are an extension of the authority of the council, but that's where they derive their authority, and that anything that reinforces that on a periodic basis is good. So although I understand it's a little awkward and might be perceived as, because it's different, as something other than what I'm describing, I see it from that point of view, and I would support doing that. And I think down the road, the people that I pick, or that I'm part of picking, I'm not forcing some council in the future to absorb somebody that they weren't part of the selection process for either. So I think it's a very valid change.
Are you suggesting that those who are seeking reappointment, we interview them?
I do. I think if your term's up, it's time to have a conversation with council again, to go into your next term. It's like us running for re-election. We don't just automatically slide into the job no matter how badly we want it. I think it just gives an opportunity. Also, people's understandings of the position and the kinds of things that are learned in that interchange of ideas, I think is valid to dealing with just change. So, yeah.
Peggy?
Yeah, so number one, I want to make quite clear that I like the idea, as Bruce is saying, of having people submit an application and interviewing them even if they're already on. I'm quite disappointed, though, that the idea comes up the end of the second night of interviewing as opposed to before we even ask for applications for people and earlier in the process. And I have raised, not formally in meetings, I have raised outside meetings the issue of having everybody talk about the process we were using and the questions we were asking and so forth. And I felt like I was pushed away on that. So it's disturbing to me to be doing this now as opposed to have done it a month or 2 months ago. Do I think it's really valuable for the city and for the boards, everything to do it the way that's being proposed, that Bruce has just said, that we even interview people? Absolutely. So I'm caught in a double bind.
Bill?
Yeah, I think the timing's a little unfortunate, but the appointments that we make, even if we don't look at going as long as you want to be reappointed until you're term limited, it's a 3-year appointment. That's a long period of time. It's somewhere in between our short terms and our long terms as far as our positions, even on the council. I might consider a practical component that would throw a little bit of a wrench in it, that destroys a little bit of what Bruce is looking at, which is in some of the boards and commissions or authorities or committees, someone can kind of take a look at the slate and whether they submit a written application in response to the questions or actually line up for an interview. The practical consideration would be setting aside 3 nights to handle 20 interviews. I'm kind of sitting here, and we do have a practical time frame that would say we need to finish this so that we can have a vote at a regular meeting to allow for folks to take those seats in April, whoever that's going to be. So I might offer a practical piece that would say, if someone takes a look at it and they want, they feel that they're sufficiently known or they can put a written record together. I think at that point in time, there would be some benefit to a reappointment request versus someone who's looking for an initial appointment.
So,
Right.
so you're saying no interviews?
I didn't say that. I would say leave it to the applicant's
Okay.
option.
Okay.
They can take a look at the slate. They can take a look at what their sense is. They may or may not have had a chance to see some of our conversation and pick up some of that. It destroys a piece of where Bruce is at, but somewhere along the line we have to do the street work or the soles on the pavement or something like that.
Okay, we could, what is that word?
Long, sorry.
Well,
Okay, so
if
on the night,
could I respond to that? I think if we are saying that it's as important as people are saying, then we have to say we are committed to finding the time somehow to interview the people too, even if we don't, if it's a really short interview. I think we need to do the same process. That's what I think.
We wouldn't have the questions to ask that we've asked the brand-new candidates.
Right, they would be shorter, right?
It would be maybe a single question, why do you want to be reappointed?
Yeah,
And-
something, or what do you think you can contribute ongoing, something of
Yeah,
that.
we wouldn't ask these questions again.
No.
No sense in doing that.
okay. Mayor? Yes, Jerry?
May I comment? I think interviewing those that want to be reappointed is a good idea, even this year, and I do agree with you, Peggy, but I think it is a good idea to do it now. I don't think we need to do it with every board and commission. On the ones that have many applicants, I think there it makes sense. For instance, the Fine Arts Committee. there's 2 reappointments and there's already 3 openings, I don't think we need to necessarily interview those folks, the reappointment ones. Whereas on the Planning Commission, we do have a couple folks, 3 reappointments, and we have a slew of applicants. I think it could be narrowed down to just 3 boards. I would suggest the Housing, or the Historic Preservation Board, Housing Authority, and Planning Commission.
That's an intriguing idea, Jerry, but I really think we need to treat everybody the same.
Okay, that's your,
I mean, that's
my recommendation are those 3, but yeah, I understand that too. But if we treated everybody the same, we would ask the exact same questions, and over the last couple nights, we didn't ask the exact same questions all the time. So it's not always going to be treated fairly 100%.
And just on a practical level, the 19th, we could do interviews, and if we needed to, we could also start early on the 20th and continue interviews. Except that if we're going to appoint on the 20th, we would have no time to deliberate.
You could have, and I don't think, I'd have to confirm with what the ordinances say, but my guess is you have additional time. I don't know if it's a requirement in the ordinance or if that's just policy, kind of standard operating procedure as far as April 1st.
I think it says in the, hang on just a second, I think it says at the beginning in the ordinance that their year, the appointments run starting April 1st.
I mean, what I'm hearing, I guess what I'm, yeah.
Here.
But
Section B.
if there's an interest by the council, what I'm hearing from the majority is that if you're going to do it, you want to be fair, you want to do it, you want to hear all of them on all boards and commissions, and so I think we can make that work, I guess, because you don't want to shortchange if you're going to do it. You know, Peggy's just said she's identified concerns about timing, you know, best laid plans type of thing, but I think we can make that work, and unless it's if it just says they take a seat as opposed to council shall appoint by, I think you've got that flexibility.
It does actually say shall, appointments shall be made during March of each year, and each term of office shall begin on April 1st following the
Well,
appointment.
maybe we can do something the week before,
Well, I think on a timeline,
in addition.
we could do interviews on the 12th, which is the Monday, and then
19th.
And then
and the
deliberate on
19th.
20th.
No,
You do 12th.
But, I mean,
we do the 12th.
Could you do the 13th also?
Yeah, we could do the 13th. We have a study session that night.
We have
though.
a lot on the
And
study
it's-
We have
session.
a lot.
Yes,
It's
but
full.
we could have a meeting on the 27th of March
You
to
could.
Yeah,
make
we could do
appointments.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've got time if we, if
Do
we,
a regular meeting?
Could also be
yeah, schedule a regular
We
meeting.
just have a special meeting.
A special meeting,
meeting.
excuse me.
And part of looking at the 19th and the 20th was to give the applicants some time for it and not try, I mean, just it was
Well-
that trade-off on there.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that they should be able to fill out that application. That's given them 3 weeks to fill out an application. So I'd like,
Yeah.
if we could, tighten it up a little, because
Right.
if we do have 20 that really do want to interview, and we will have a more dynamic deliberation.
And when you say, are you saying to give them an option of interviewing?
I think, I would favor giving them an option on the interview if they wanted to come in or if they didn't,
Well,
or if not.
my reason for wanting to have an interview with them, in part, is some of what my reactions have been last night and tonight. And this is not a judgment on any particular person. There are things in a person's manner or tone or whatever that may be more important on certain boards than others. And seeing that when they're confronting us, or we're confronting them, as all these applicants had to. It's different than seeing them in action if you go and attend a meeting. That I think is an important piece. And for some of the boards and commissions, how people work with each other, the tone, the manner, is really important. So I think we should be interviewing all of them. But the main thing that I'd want to know is what they think they would contribute, or what issues they see, or whatever, based on their experience so far. But particularly why they want to serve, what they think they would contribute for another 3 years. And again, I don't think we need to ask a whole series of questions.
I would, and I'm fine with having them all interviewed. If everybody is okay with going ahead and doing this process, and so we will ask them all to fill out the standard application and set up an interview time, which you'll figure out the best dates for that. Okay. She's going to kill me.
If we could have you guys, especially those, well, I guess everyone, but especially those who work, and you don't have to do it tonight, but if you could email Wendy or myself, the ones, if we did the 12th, the 14th, the 19th, let me say that again, the 12th, the 14th,
Or
the
the 19th.
Well, and the 9th, because
Try again. Say it again.
one more time. The 12th, the 14th, the 19th, and early on the 20th, if you could let us know if you're available any or all of those dates, and then on the 27th, that will allow Wendy and I the flexibility to figure out what works, because we're also going to be asking, I realize it's 3 weeks out, but asking candidates, or applicants rather, to how to work it together, and rather than scheduling by committee.
Could we raise hand now if we know we're available for all 4?
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Okay.
I'm good.
I'm not here on the 19th.
On the 19th, no.
There is a board meeting on that night too, historic preservation, on the 19th it is.
Okay.
But I can miss that.
Okay.
But we would need HPV folks here,
We'd need the applicants.
applicants.
They'll be here. But there's a meeting on the 19th.
Okay, thank you.
We shouldn't do the 19th.
Okay.
And on the 14th, I've got a meeting at Dr. Cog till 6.
Or you could,
We could start
All right.
6:30.
As long,
7?
yeah,
I sometimes can't make it at 6 o'clock out of downtown Denver.
Yeah. Could start at 7,
Good.
got it.
Bruce?
on the HPB meeting, you might, those things start at 7, you might see if they could come in at 6.
Got it.
Since they're planning to be here anyway.
If they're going to be here that night.
Right.
If they aren't on another date.
And, you know, if you're doing multiple nights, you can work, HPB members can work around, just because Planning Commission meets on the 12th.
Right.
So they got to work around.
And where would we push them to if we were televising from here? They would go next door.
Planning
Okay.
Commission?
Pardon? No, hit,
No, the HPV,
Is-
They've met there before.
DRC
This-
room.
that's okay.
Planning
I
Commission
just,
wouldn't be
if-
televised then.
Well,
Yeah.
if you,
It's
we just
regular
need to know
meeting.
when you guys are available, and we'll work on, trust us to figure out the schedule. We can handle that.
I am not available the 12th or the 14th.
Oh, yeah, you're gone.
Oh, yep.
when,
That's right.
are you
Well,
going
that
during those?
that
really
really-
throws a
Late
wrench
plan.
in
Are
it.
you going
'Cause
both weeks total?
he was the
Oh,
guy.
that's
Well,
when
Just,
you're-
it's just that
Yeah.
this Monday, Tuesday.
I mean, again, I'm going to go back to, do we really need to look at everybody? When you look at the tree committee, there's one person wanting to be reappointed, and we have 2 openings, and we have 1 applicant. I mean, and that's the guy that wants to be reappointed. I mean, he may just say, I don't feel like filling out another applicant, so now we have 3 openings. So I think we could be creating ourselves some problems. I would, again, go back to just looking at what boards are the competitive ones. And historically, the Historic Board and the Planning Commission are the competitive boards. And those are the ones that are probably where our biggest interest may be. So I don't see why we would really want to take the time of a board, the Building Board of Appeals person, when they met, I think, once last year. Now we're asking them to fill out another application so that we can interview them. I think that's going a little bit overboard than what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, on a practical
Right.
standpoint, but then I guess if we feel comfortable that that is not creating an unfairness. Is that a word? Unfairness?
It is in some countries.
Well, given that we're doing this on the spur of the moment this year, we could have a little flexibility in that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because it's a short window we're looking at here.
So it would be fine arts, historic preservation,
I don't think you need to.
housing, and planning.
Fine arts, no.
No fine arts? Okay,
You got 2 re-ups and
And 3.
3 openings.
Yeah.
okay.
So,
HPB, Littleton Housing Authority, and the Planning Commission?
And I think you're right, Peggy, this being a short window that we're looking at here, that next year we would want to address this far earlier.
How many applicants would that be if we
Oh,
did those
sorry.
three? And I do, and yeah, I think that, and that's part of the great thing with having the task force working on this too, is that bring back recommendations as to
Five.
how
Only
many?
5.
See, and that's
Five.
workable.
5?
That's
So,
workable.
I counted 7.
One,
Oh, no.
One
Oh, you
on
didn't.
historic
Oh, that's right.
preservation,
Okay, that's right.
you
Okay,
were
I'm
in
sorry.
finance, right?
one on housing,
So if that's 5, that changes.
and 5,
Everything.
or 3 on planning commission.
Yeah, that's right.
So we could do the interviews at 6 o'clock on the 19th, and then we could go into,
yeah.
oh, Phil's gone.
On the 19th, you're not here on the 19th?
So we can only do the 20th.
Or you could do the 20, I was thinking 21st, depending upon what your schedule looks like, and then hold the special meeting on the 27th
I have Dr. Cog on the 21st.
till,
What
so
about-
start at 7?
What
start
about
at
a
5.
Thursday night?
Oh,
Could
it's
we
an
do it
email.
on
You
a
can do
Thursday
that.
night?
I'm game.
We could do the 22nd.
I was looking at the 15th, maybe.
There's a open house at Carson Nature that we
Oh,
have.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
couldn't read my
Yeah,
scribble
we
in
got
there.
invited to this one.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Which one was that?
Didn't read my scribble.
Who's that?
The
The
22nd?
15th is the Carson thing.
Carson Nature Center.
22nd is good for me. It's a Thursday. Start at 6.
Do that.
Could do that. And that gives them a little more time to
Get ready.
get ready. So we're thinking,
And
Get my
for
nails
Wendy.
done.
So 22nd for interviews and a special meeting on the 27th for deliberation and approval, appointment.
Okay.
22nd, 6 PM interviews. 27th.
so we're doing 5 people at approximately 15 minutes each. Is there a reason we couldn't have a special meeting right after it on the 22nd?
I was following what
Oh, to
Jim
take
had said
time to
earlier, to
look-
take
yeah,
time to
yeah.
digest, so.
Because, yeah.
That would be good.
Okay, so now you've kind of decided that, I've got a couple of practical questions that I need to ask how council wants to handle this. You have 7 people?
There are 7 people.
No, there aren't.
You're
5.
talking about Historic Preservation Board, there are 3.
These 2 are not.
Historic preservation, there's only one person that is a reappointment person.
Well,
Those
because the
other
2
people
moving
are
on.
alternates.
They're moving.
And
on.
that's one of the questions that I want to ask you. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Once you interview the 5 people who are reappointment people, so the old people, are you going to put them in the same bucket as the people for the same bucket as the new people? So it'll just be one, you'll all look at them all as
That's what I heard
one
them
bucket
say.
of people for planning commission, one bucket of people for HPB?
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is that if you have someone, let's use HPB as a perfect example. We have Chuck Reed, who needs to be reappointed, and by the way, I already have his application because he sent one in. Pam Grove and Dan Murphy are alternate 1 and alternate 2. So are we going to fill alternate 1 and alternate 2 and go ahead? I just want to go in this with a plan so that the council doesn't look silly that night, and we go in with a plan that we know what we're doing. And so are you going to move them up into the regular positions? Pam and Dan, and then fill the alternate 1 and alternate 2?
Wendy, I'll go out and I'll say and everyone can jump in whether they agree or support, is anyone that's in an alternate position.
You're echoing.
You're echoing so badly.
Thank you. Anyone that's in an alternate position, our presumption would be they would move to a regular position for the remainder of their term.
Okay, so for historic preservation, you would have 1 regular position and an alternate 1 and an alternate 2 that you're going to fill, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're going in. And so that night on the, you're not going to do it that night. On the 27th is when you're going to deliberate you're going to go through and you're going to decide
And appoint.
and appoint that night.
Okay, so since you've asked all that, since Chuck is applying for reappointment, if he's reappointed and he's regular. If
That's up to you.
No, but I mean, if we'd follow this logic, it would seem to me. And then we'd be filling those 2 alternate spots, right?
With new people.
Yeah, now, if by some fluke or chance or whatever, we did not reappoint Chuck, right? We would be appointing someone else as a regular.
Correct.
And then we'd
And 2
still
alternates.
appoint 2 alternates. Is that what
Yes.
people?
That's the way it
Okay,
works.
so we get it all clarified. That's not a comment about anybody
No, it's
who's
not about
No, we're
Chuck.
just,
who's being
we're just
reappointed.
using random names.
Just random names.
Bruce?
Okay.
Would it be possible for somebody in the city manager's staff, not you, because you're already charged with this, to go back through what we've talked about tonight and put it in an outline
Summarize.
so we could have a procedure for the next time?
Absolutely.
Phil?
Can I suggest that we also reserve some time on the 22nd, because all of our openings and people don't necessarily mesh up on the calendar, and we may want to go back to some of the candidates for something other than their first, second, or third, or fourth, or even fifth in some instances selection.
Explain that again? I didn't follow that.
Okay? That we may not do fully our deliberation on the evening of the 22nd, but we should have some time to discuss, because there may be some need or possibility of going back to some of the candidates and talking with them about something that might be beyond what they may have indicated as their first or second choice.
Well,
Do you want them to come in, or do you just want them to be available by phone, or?
Available. You know, there may be a reach out that we need to make, and it may not be that evening even, but before we get to our final position on the 27th, we should have a pretty good idea that if we make an offer in a position that may be something other than their first or second choice, we have some idea of whether they take it or not.
well, we've interviewed everybody on their first and second, but we didn't interview anybody who might have listed a third. So if we think we want to, I think we need to ask them to come in to be interviewed on the third choice, if somebody thinks we're needing that.
We have at least one applicant that's indicated 5 different selections. So are we going to go through that? That's why I was saying that's why I'm not suggesting, I guess I would figure we could try and work it out without necessarily putting some of this.
The alternative to that, Phil, that we've done in the past is if we didn't have enough applications to fill the slots over there, what we interviewed them for, we open up the applications again and just not fill the slot for another month, and we advertise again.
I realize that's an option.
Jerry?
I don't see the reason we need to re-interview any of the folks that we've already interviewed. If there's anybody that falls down below into number 3, if they put that on their application and that they express some interest, whether we ask them direct questions or not, it's a phone call away. Say, are you still interested? Do you want to be on the X committee? And if they say yes, that works for me.
Okay, because we have already essentially asked them upwards of 8 questions, and we've got a good feel for the folks at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good on this. You guys know what you need to do?
Yes,
All right, so we are now going to move into an exec session.
correct.
Bruce?
All right. City Council will conduct an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub F, to discuss personnel issues regarding the city attorney. And, no, if you can hand it down to.
Okay, we need a second. Okay, we have a first and a second. Show of hands, please. Unanimous. We are going into exec session. We will not return, and we are adjourned.